অতনুদা শুনতে পাইনি মনে হয়।
অতনুদা মিউট আছে।
হ্যাঁ, মিউট করা আছে।
স্বপনদা?
হ্যাঁ আছি জয়ুদা।
এই তো।
হ্যাঁ
কোথায়? বাড়িতে? থ্যাংক ইউ।
হ্যাঁ বাড়িতে আছি, বাড়িতেই। হ্যাঁ
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা। শরীর ভালো?
আচ্ছা, স্যার
জয়েন করেছেন? স্যার গুড ইভিনিং স্যার।
হ্যাঁ গুড ইভিনিং
স্যার। আরম্ভ করছি তাহলে।
হ্যাঁ শুরু করে দাও। হ্যাঁ
নীলাদ্রি, তুই লাইভে গিয়ে আমাকে ওকে কর। শ্রেয়াও জয়েন করে গেছে, আরম্ভ করে দেবো।
স্যার কালকে আসছেন আপনি মানডেতে?
না, যেতে পারবো না। আমার নিজের ডক্টরেট কমিটি মিটিং আছে, আমার ডিপার্টমেন্টের পরীক্ষা আছে। বললাম না, শোনো, সোম বুধ আমার ফেলবে না। আমার
না, আমার ইমার্জেন্সি ছিল বলে তো আপনার পারমিশন নিয়েছি প্রথমে।
আরে আমার ডিপার্টমেন্টটা তো আগে তোমার থেকে, তাই না? আমি তো আমার ডিপার্টমেন্টে ফলো করে তোমার ডিপার্টমেন্টে আমি যাবো না, এটা তো বুঝতে হবে। আমাকে পেতে গেলে সোম বুধ করে আমার 7টা করে ক্লাস থাকে। আমি কোনো অবস্থাতেই সোম বুধ যাবো না। হয় মঙ্গল বৃহস্পতি শুক্র ফেলো যাবো। সোম বুধ হলে আমি যেতে কোনোদিন যেতে পারবো না, বলে দিয়েছি আগে।
ঠিক 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 আছে।
হ্যাঁ।
লাইভ আছে স্যার।
Okay. So, a very good evening to all of you. I, Dr. Avigra, on behalf of the Study Circle Committee of Universal Briefing, welcome all of you to this Study Circle number 38. And we have two very eminent personalities in this session, about whom I would request Shreya to introduce them. But before that, let me inform you all about some activities of Universal Briefing, a very one or two introduction about it, and what's our next program of Universal Briefing regarding these academic efforts. And that is, we organize such kind of on every last Saturday of every month at 7:30 p.m. And in this way, we have today we are organizing this last Saturday of January as usual, and we have collaborated with Bharati Library Network to organize an international seminar on Indian knowledge system, which is going to be held on 21st and 22nd February at Bharati campus. So you are all welcome over there. So that's all from my side, briefly about Universal Briefing and its future activities. Now I request Shreya Thakur, who is presently working as librarian as Ogroni Sangho Sangstha Jubo Sadharan Pathagar. She is very dynamic and very dear to us. She is our student and presently LIS professionals and a budding professional, I should say. So I'd request Shreya to kindly carry on the session and introduce our esteemed personalities of this session.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to the 38th study cycle of Universal Briefing. First, I would like to welcome our convener of the session, Dr. Obhik Roy, and the chairperson of the study cycle, Dr. Otanu Dash. Let me welcome our president of the session, Dr. Ziaur Rahman, associate professor and head of the department, Library and Information Science, Rabindra Bharati University, West Bengal, and our esteemed speaker, Ms. Apala Chatterjee, librarian, Thakur Government College, Thakurnagar, North Chobish Parganas, West Bengal. Now, allow me to introduce our president of the session, Dr. Ziaur Rahman. Dr. Rahman is currently the Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Library and Information Science at Rabindra Bharati University, Kolkata. His distinguished academic journey has seen him serve as an assistant professor at both the University of North Bengal and Assam University. He is the chief editor of the Review Journal of Library and Information Science, a UGC care-listed publication. Dr. Rahman holds a BSc and BLI's degree from North Bengal University and an MLS degree from Aligarh Muslim University and a PhD from Jadavpur University. His academic pursuits also include a certificate course from King's College London and the University of Leeds, showcasing his global academic exposure. With an impressive record of 71 publications in leading national and international journals, conference volumes, and book chapters, along with 3 editorial books, Dr. Rahman is a prolific contributor to the academic world. His research interests encompasses scientometric bibliometric studies, systematic reviews, and knowledge organization, among other related areas. It is indeed an honor to have such an accomplished academic and leader preside over this study cycle, guiding us with his expertise and insights. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Ziaur Rahman. Over to you, Dr. Ziaur Rahman, sir.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you very much for your kind introduction and for connecting me with everyone present here on this platform. And I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Udan Bhattacharya. You everyone know he's my mentor, my PhD supervisor. And my gratitude is because he is the man behind this platform for creating, along with Dr. Ranjan Shamanto, Dr. Obhik Roy and Otanu Das, and many others who have contributed to its success. And I'm truly honored and grateful to be invited to preside over this session. As everybody know, today's speaker is Miss Apala Chatterjee, and it's a customary to introduce with the audience with the speaker. And so I am doing. Miss Apala Chatterjee is currently serving as librarian at P.R. Thakur Government College. It's located at North Chobish Pargana, West Bengal, and she has made significant academic contributions, having many more published research papers in reputed national journals. And additionally, she has actively participated in seminars, conferences, induction programs, short-term courses, and MOOCs to enhance her professional knowledge and skills. And Ms. Chatterjee is also pursuing her PhD degree from Jadavpur University to furthering her expertise in this field. And I'm delighted to invite Ms. Apala Chatterjee to be the guest speaker for study circle, as you know, that is 38, and that is being organized by Universal Briefings. The session will focus on the thought-provoking topic she has chosen, the Matilda effect, invisible woman scientist in science. And I'm sure your expertise and insight on this topic will undoubtedly inspire and enlighten our audience. And I hope you will honor us with your valuable contributions and speech. Ms. Apala, please.
Thank you, sir. A very good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Udan Bhattacharya sir, President of Universal Briefing, convener, chairperson, and respected all dignitaries of this 38th study circle. At the outset, I would like to thank the whole team of the Universal Briefing to share my views on the topic entitled The Matilda Effect, Invisible Women Scientists in Science. Next slide. What is Matilda effect? How many world famous female scientists do we know? Maybe one or two. There are plenty more in number, and that is the issue generated here is the Matilda effect. Throughout the history, women's contribution or discoveries were brushed aside, suppressed, or wrongly credited to their male colleagues. Several scientific inventions, even Nobel Prizes, have been attributed to male colleagues for female colleagues' work. And this systematic discrimination against women is called Matilda effect. There are several consequences of the Matilda effect, as we can see in the slide. The participation of women in scientific advances throughout the history is much lower than that of men. Secondly, women are barely mentioned in textbooks despite having made discoveries and even having won Nobel Prizes. Thirdly, pseudonyms are under the names of their husbands, and this is the cause of the Matilda effect. Next slide. And this is the phenomenon of Matilda effect was first described by American writer and activist Matilda Joslyn Gage in her essay Woman as an Inventor in the year of 1870. The term Matilda effect, the term actually coined by the science historian Margaret Rosetta in 1993. Next slide. How does the Matilda effect propagate the STEM gender gap? The Matilda effect propagates the STEM gender gap. STEM means science, technology, engineering, and medicine. Science, technology, engineering, and medicine, which encompasses a broad range of fields and disciplines that are essential for deriving innovation, economic growth, and improving quality of life. And this Matilda effect propagates the STEM gender gap by reinforcing male stereotypes, leading to fewer female role models and male dominated culture that leads to less recognition of female achievements. And in the picture, as we can see, previous slide, please. And this chart from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2019 that shows the percentage of women in different STEM fields. As we can see in this chart, the computing and mathematical sciences and engineering and architecture, there is only been 10 to 20% proportion of women working in this workforce. Secondly, whereas in biological sciences, it gets closer to 30 to 40%. But we can see none of these STEM fields have equal representation of men and women. Next point. Next slide, please. The gender gap in productivity. The gender gap can also be observed in productivity. So there was a paper by Huang and co-workers. They showed in this study that just 35% of all authors were female. If we break this down into the STEM fields, these proportions is even less. So far, mathematics, physics, computer science, and engineering, the proportion of women authoring papers in this field is only 18%. Next slide. Next slide, gender gap in impact. Another measure that we can observe this gender gap is in the citation. We all know that citation is a metric used often for scientists as well as an example of how impactful the publication is. So the more citation of ones have, the better the paper might seem. Dovharkin and her co-workers published this study in 2020. As we can see in the diagram in Nature Neuroscience, where they looked at papers from the top 5 neuroscience journals published before 2016, then compared to them to a random draw model and to see if papers were a man in the first and last author position that was cited more often than expected, and a woman was in either of those positions are cited less often. Next slide. Percentage of female laureates in science. The percentage of Nobel Prize awarded to women is much lower. Women won the Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine is 5 to 7% of the awarded. And chemistry, 4.1% of total awarded, and physics, 2.2% of total awarded. And in mathematics, field medal, 3.1% awarded. And this is the scenario of the female laureates in scientific invention. Next slide. The history of forgotten women scientists I will discuss here. I will apologize that I could not cover every single Matilda due to time constraints. So I have going to discuss about some Matildas. Next slide. My first Matilda is Theano, who was a 6th century before Common Era Pythagorean philosopher, and she was first known woman mathematician. And that is very little actually known about Theano. She might be the student of Pythagoras, and it is very likely that a lot of her work was attributed to Pythagoras. She worked on the golden ratio, or what is known as the golden mean, which is denoted as phi. This number is a special number of mathematics. It can be demonstrated by dividing, as we can see in the diagram, the formula, dividing a line into the two parts A and B and calculating the ratio of the whole line A plus B to A. This ratio is equal to 1.618. The golden ratio is found in nature also, in the cell or spiral galaxies, art, architecture and design. And very likely her work was attributed to Pythagoras. Next slide. My next Matilda is Maria Merian, who is denoted as Mother of Entomology, who was a German-born Swiss naturalist in the 17th century. She studied insects in their environments rather than dead specimens. Her study of insects disputed theory of spontaneous generation that insects grew from mud. She did this by breeding butterflies and was one of the first to document metamorphosis in butterflies. She also documented the amphibian life cycle frogs. She was also possibly one of the first people to document insect parasitism. Because of her lack of formal education and her gender, her successors were hesitant to cite her, and her work fell into obscurity for decades. After her death, some inaccuracies crept into copies of her handprintings. Next slide. My third Matilda is Maria Creech. She was the first woman to discover a comet in 1702. Her husband wrote to King Leopold I describing the discovery, but omitted her name. Just before his death in 1710, he revealed his wife was one who made the discovery, and her name was excluded from the academy because of her gender. Next, my fourth Matilda is Sophia Germain. She was a French mathematician born in 18th century. She introduced Fermat's last theorem for some special primes known as p and 2p plus 1, which is also a prime. These German primes are still used today in cryptography and a part of the reason that our credit card chip keeps our money safe. Next, we in 1911, please previous slide. In 1911, the Paris Academy of Science offered a prize to anyone who could offer a mathematical theory for why elastic plates on vibration from standing waves. Through in 1914, Poisson also published his work on elasticity. However, he did not acknowledge the German who helped him, and they worked together. Next, my fifth Matilda is Mary Anning, who was a fossil collector and palynologist, who was an English fossil collector and palynologist born on late 18th century. She was born into extreme poverty. She was born in Lyme Regis, which is known for its Jurassic fossils. She discovered many dinosaurs fossils, including two ichthyosaurs of 9 and 11 feet. And Anning discovered the first plesiosaur. Her work claimed by men like William Buckland and William Conybeare, who gave talks and wrote about her discoveries. In 1832, she discovered the head of a large ichthyosaur, but Thomas Hawkins was acknowledged for digging up the full fossil, and the Geological Society of London raised money when she was diagnosed with cancer and made her an honorary member in 1846. Many of her earnings findings in museums and personal collections today still don't credit her. Next slide. My next six Matilda is Nettie Stevens, who discovered the sex chromosomes. She was an American biologist born in 19th century, and she revolutionized biology by demonstrating in mealworms that the sex of each individual is determined by the X and Y pair of chromosomes. She concluded that sex is inherited as a chromosomal factor and that males determine the sex. This refuted the common belief that the mother was responsible for the sex of the child or environmental factors. Edmund Wilson might have similar discovery about the same time and was given credit for this discovery. However, Stevens' conclusions were more accurate than his. My seventh Matilda is Alice Ball. Alice Ball was an African American chemist born in the late 19th century, and she developed a water soluble injectable form of chaul mogra oil from chaul mogra tree seeds, and this was used as an effective treatment for leprosy for 2 decades until the 1940s. After her death, Arthur Dean continued her work, and soon the Chaul Mogra injections were in demand and sent all over the world to treat leprosy. Dean never credited to Ball method in arc dump spiral. My next Matilda is Amy Noether, who was an late 19th century German-born mathematician. She has been described as the most important female mathematician by many, including Einstein. She lived almost a whole life without a salary. Noether was not allowed to teach, and much of her research and was unpaid and unpublished under colleagues or her students' name. However, Noether was fired in 1932 from Göttingen University because she was a Jewess. My ninth Matilda is Rosalind Franklin, who was a British chemist born in the 20th century. She took one of the best photographs, X-ray diffraction photos of the B form of DNA at that time. However, unknown to Franklin, her colleague Wilkins showed this photo and some other unpublished data to Watson and Crick. Data derived from these photos were instrumental in allowing Wilkins, Watson, and Crick to construct their Nobel Prize winning helical model for DNA. Because she died before the Nobel Prize award was awarded, she did not share the prize. Next, my 10th Matilda is Dorothy Anderson, who was first to diagnose cystic fibrosis, who was an American pediatrician and pathologist, who was the first person to diagnose cystic fibrosis. Her role was minimized later by Decent Ignis. My next Matilda is 11th Matilda is Clara Dan von Neumann, who was a self-taught computer scientist born in the 20th century. She was one of the world's first computer programmers and was not listed as an author in the 1950s paper Numerical Integration of the Batropic Vorticity Equation in the Scientific Journal Tellus by John von Neumann and Charney. My 12th Matilda is, next slide, my 12th Matilda is Liz Meitner, who was an American physicist born in the 19th century. She discovered nuclear fission. And Lisa Meitner was contributed to the discovery of nuclear fission alongside Otto Hahn, but her laboratory partner Otto Hahn was the only person awarded the Nobel Prize for their discovery. Next, my third Matilda is Marietta Blau, who was an Austrian physicist born in the 19th century. She was persecuted for her religion as well as agenda. In 1950, Powell won the Nobel Prize for Physics for application of the photographic method that Blau developed. Next, my 14th Matilda is Esther Liederbach, who is the pioneer of bacterial genetics. She discovered the bacterial virus lambda, which infects the bacterial species E. coli, and this has been used widely as cloning vector as it is. And he was also faced Matilda effect. My next 15th Matilda was Isabella Carli, who was an American chemist born in 20th century. In 1963, Carli published her symbolic addition procedure, which used X-ray analysis to determine essential equal atom crystal molecule structure. In 1985, Jerome Carli and Hauptmann were awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for developing direct methods for analyzing X-ray diffraction data. And she is not acknowledged here. Next, my 16th Matilda is Jocelyn Bell, who discovered pulsars. In 1967, discovered pulsars of astronomical sources, which is a rotating neutron star that emits a regular trickling signal of radio waves. This observation is considered one of the greatest astronomical discoveries of the 20th century. But in 1974, Hughes Bell's supervisor and Ryle were awarded the first Nobel Prize in observation astronomy for Jocelyn Bell's pulsars discovery, and he was not acknowledged. So, in the next slide, I am discussing about reasons behind this Matilda effect. There are several reasons, women, such as social and cultural factors like stereotypes and biases. Women are often stereotyped as being less capable in science and mathematics, leading to biases in evolution and recognition. Lack of representation, that is, women are underrepresented in many scientific fields. This can make harder to be recognized for their contributions. And thirdly, cultural norms, that is, women are often socialized to be humble and avoid self promotion. Next, institutional and structural factors includes male-dominated networks, that scientific communities are often male-dominated, making it harder for women to access networks and opportunities. And lack of mentorship, that is, women lack access to mentorship and guidance. And institutional barriers, women sometimes face institutional barriers such as lack of funding, resources, or opportunities. Next slide, I mentioned psychological and individual factors like imposter syndrome, that is, women may experience imposter syndrome, that is, feeling that they're not deserving of recognition or credit for their achievements. Lack of confidence, women may lack confidence in their abilities. Fear of backlash, that women may fear backlash or criticism for asserting their contribution and achievements. And secondly, historical and systemic factors like historical exclusion. Women have historically been excluded from scientific communities and institutions, leading to a lack of representation and recognitions. Systemic sexism, that is, which is embedded in the systems and structures of scientific institutions, leading to biases and barriers that hinders women's recognition and achievements. Lack of data and metrics, and this is the cause of behind Matilda effect. Next, what is the role of SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, that is adopted by United Nations Organization 2015, which aimed at transforming our world for the better within 2030, and role of SDG in mitigating the Matilda effect. SDG Sustainable Development Goals 4, which is denoted as quality education, which promotes inclusive education. The Matilda effect underscores the need for inclusive education that values and promotes diversity, including gender diversity. Next, encouraging women in STEM. Efforts in encourage women to pursue STEM education and careers can help mitigate the Matilda effect. Next, SDG 5, gender equality also mitigates the Matilda effect by recognizing women's contribution. The Matilda effect highlights the need to recognize and value women's contribution to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that is STEM fields, as well as other areas of society. Secondly, addressing gender biases. The Matilda effect is a manifestation of systematic gender bias which must be addressed to achieve gender equality. SDG 8, that is decent work and economic growth, which is also responsible to mitigate the Matilda effect by valuing women's work. The Matilda effect highlights the need to value and recognize women's contribution to the workforce, including in STEM fields. And promoting equal pay efforts, that is, efforts to promote equal pay for equal work, can help address the economic implications of the Matilda effect. SDG 9, that is next point, SDG 9, industry innovation and infrastructure, is also responsible to mitigate the Matilda effect by promoting inclusive innovation and encouraging women in innovation. Next, SDG 10, that is reducing inequalities, and SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, have roles in mitigating the Matilda effect. By addressing systematic inequalities, the Matilda effect is a manifestation of systematic inequalities which must be addressed to achieve reduced inequalities. Efforts to promote inclusive policies that values and recognize diversity, including gender diversity, which can help mitigate the Matilda effect. And by promoting inclusive institutions, uh, that Matilda effect underscores the need for inclusive institutions that value and promote diversity and including gender diversity. Efforts to address systematic injustice, including those perpetuated by the Matilda effect, which can help promote peace, justice, and strong institutions. So, in the conclusion, I am mentioning the library's role in mitigating this Matilda effect, and such as preserving and promoting women's contribution. Libraries can ensure that works of female scientists, scholars, and artists are well documented, catalogued, and made accessible. By actively curating collections that highlight these figures, libraries can help elevate their visibility and importance within their respective fields. Secondly, providing equal access to resources. Libraries can help provide equitable access to information and resources for everyone, regardless of gender, by fostering an inclusive environment with diverse materials. They ensure that women, particularly those whose work has been marginalized, can find the resources they need to advance in their fields. Thirdly, facilitating outreach and education. Libraries can create programs and events that highlight the contributions of women, especially those whose accomplishments have historically been overlooked. They can organize exhibits, lecture, and workshops. They focus on the history of women in science, technology, and literature, and other disciplines, bringing more awareness to these issues. Fourthly, supporting research and collaboration. Libraries are the hubs for research, and by promoting collaborations among diverse groups of scholars, they can help amplify the voices of women in academia. Libraries can support networking opportunities and mentorship programs for women, helping them and find academic and professional support. Fifthly, archiving oral histories and personal narratives. Libraries can serve as spaces where women's stories, both personal and professional, are archived. Collecting oral histories and documenting the experiences of women in various fields allows future generations to gain insight into the challenges women face and the ways they have contributed to knowledge and progress. By providing equal access to resources, supporting education and outreach efforts, and preserving historical narratives, and libraries can actively help reduce this Matilda effect and foster a more inclusive understanding of the history. Thank you.
Thank you, Apala, for timely concluding. আমার তো মনে হচ্ছে খুব একটা ইন্টারেস্টিং টপিক, বাট আমার একটু জিজ্ঞাসা আছে, অনেকের হয়তো জিজ্ঞাসা থাকতে পারে। এই জিজ্ঞাসা হলো যে অপলা, হ্যাঁ অপলা, তোমার বেসিক সাবজেক্ট কি, মানে মাস্টার্সে, মানে অ্যাপার্ট ফ্রম লাইব্রেরি সায়েন্স?
আমি বটানিতে গ্রাজুয়েশন করেছিলাম।
আচ্ছা, তো তুমি যখন চয়েস করো তো শুধু সায়েন্স কেন, আরো তো ডিসিপ্লিনের এই ধরনের বায়াসনেস হয়ে আছে, তো সেগুলো কেন চয়েস করো?
কিন্তু ওই সায়েন্সের পার্টটা একটু বেশি আছে, যেমন ম্যাথামেটিক্যাল সায়েন্স বা কম্পিউটার সায়েন্সের যে আমি রেশিওটা দেখাচ্ছিলাম, মানে মোটামুটি পিসের ক্ষেত্রে দেখা যায় অনেক বেশি উমেনদের মানে পার্টিসিপেশনটা বেশি রাদার দ্যান সায়েন্স।
আচ্ছা,
তো সেই কারণে আমি সায়েন্টিফিক ফিল্ডটা চুজ করেছিলাম।
আচ্ছা, রিসেন্ট আমি ইন্ডিয়ার কোন সায়েন্টিস্টকে দেখলাম না এখানে, মানে এই ঘটনা কি ইন্ডিয়ান কোন সায়েন্টিস্টের সাথে ঘটেনি বা হয়নি বা কোনো ডেটা নাই, এরকম কিছু মনে হচ্ছে ডেটা সার্চ করতে গিয়ে?
এটা আমি ইন্ডিয়ার এটা ওভারঅল করেছি, তো এবার ওভারঅলের ক্ষেত্রে এই নোবেল লর্ডস এর পোর্শনটাকে বেশি করে আমি এটা ফোকাস করেছি। হ্যাঁ, ইন্ডিয়াতেও এরকম সংখ্যা কমই হবে, যখন ওয়ার্ল্ড এর ক্ষেত্রে কম হচ্ছে তখন ন্যাচারালি আমাদের ইন্ডিয়ার ক্ষেত্রেও কম হবে। এবার এটা আমাকে একটু তাহলে দেখতে হবে পার্সেন্টেজটা কত।
আচ্ছা, মানে লাইব্রেরি সায়েন্সে তো নোবেল তো মানে দূরের কথা, শুধু এখানে তুমি নোবেল লরেটস মানে এই ধরনের বেশি উল্লেখ করেছো, অ্যাপার্ট ফ্রম ওই জায়গা থেকে হয়তো অনেক অনেক কিছু অনেক বেশি হতে পারে, তাই না? ঠিক আছে, আমার তো খুব ভালো লেগেছে টপিক, নতুনত্ব আছে এর মধ্যে। বাকি হ্যাঁ, যারা এখানে রয়েছেন তাদের যদি কোনো জিজ্ঞাসা থাকে তাহলে জিজ্ঞাসা করতে পারে। কারো কিছু জিজ্ঞাসা নেই?
হ্যাঁ, অপলা ম্যাডাম,
হ্যাঁ বলুন স্যার।
অনুপ কুমার রাউত বলছি। হ্যাঁ, বলছি যে এটা কি কোনো রিসার্চ পেপার বেরোচ্ছে না পাঠচক্রের জন্যই?
না, এটা আমি অ্যাকচুয়ালি স্যারের মানে রবীন্দ্র ভারতী ইউনিভার্সিটির যে জার্নাল আছে সেখানে আমি একটা পাঠিয়েছিলাম, কিন্তু ওটা আমার রিজেক্ট হয়েছে আর কি।
না,
এটা আমি
সোর্স অফ ইনফরমেশন কি মানে ভ্যারাইটি অফ লিটারেচার, না কোনো একটা বা দুটো ক্ষেত্র থেকে আসছে?
না, এটা কিছু তো স্টাডি করেইছি মোটামুটি।
যারা স্যাম্পলিং এ এসেছেন সেটা কি ডিফারেন্ট টাইপ অফ সোর্সেস?
হ্যাঁ, ডিফারেন্ট টাইপ অফ স্টাডি থেকেই ওনারা এসেছেন।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা। না স্যার যেটা জিয়াউর স্যার যেটা বলছিলেন খুব ভালোই বলেছেন। এটা তো কাজটা তো খুবই ভালো কাজ, যদি আমাদের ইন্ডিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভ যোগ করা যায় আর যদি সমস্ত ফিল্ড গুলো করা যায় তাহলে মানে একটা ভালো আর্টিকেল হতে পারে অবশ্যই।
হ্যাঁ স্যার,
দেখুন আগামী
ওই পার্টটা আমি চেষ্টা করবো অ্যাড করার।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
অপলা, তুমি কবে পাঠিয়েছো আমাদের আরবি জার্নালে?
স্যার এই
এই
24
ইস্যুতে না?
না, আমার
24
24 জানুয়ারি ফার্স্ট উইক নাগাদ আমার কাছে লেটার আসে যে এটা রিজেক্টেড হয়েছে, এই আর কি।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, ওখানে লাইব্রেরি সায়েন্স কিছু ছিল না হয়তো, কারণ এটা তো আমাদের নর্মালি পিয়ার রিভিউড হয়, দুটো রিভিউ হয় আমাদের। তো সেখান থেকে যদি মানে একটা পজিটিভ ফিডব্যাক না আসে তাহলে সেগুলো কনসিডার্ড হয় না। ঠিক আছে। আর প্রচুর যেহেতু আর্টিকেল আছে, মোর দেন এবার 180 আর্টিকেল এসছে, সেখানে আমাদের 15 to 16 আর্টিকেল আমাদের সিলেক্ট করতে হচ্ছে। তো ইটস সো ডিফিকাল্ট টু সিলেক্ট 16 আর্টিকেল আউট অফ 180, তাই না? আর বছরে যেহেতু একটা, তো সেখানে অ্যাকর্ডিংলি আমাদের এটা পাবলিশ করা হয়। তো হোপফুলি তুমি যদি আরো এটাকে আরো বেটার ওয়েতে কাজ করো, অন্য কিছু আরো কিছু মানে লাইব্রেরি সায়েন্স থেকে শুরু করে ইন্ডিয়ান কনটেক্সট যদি তুমি এখানে দিতে পারো, আমার মনে হয় পেপারটা ভালো হবে। তো এটা শুধু ডেসক্রিপটিভ না দিয়ে এটা সিস্টেমেটিক রিভিউ অথবা মানে কিছুটা মেটা অ্যানালিসিস এই ধরনের পার্ট যদি তুমি এখানে ইনক্লুড করতে পারো, তো নো ডাউট এটা ভালো একটা আর্টিকেল হবে। আমি তো তোমার প্রেজেন্টেশন দেখতে দেখতে আমার মনে হচ্ছিল যে আমি একটা আর্টিকেলই না লিখে ফেলি এর উপরে, মানে এটা কোয়ান্টিটেটিভ অ্যাসপেক্টে। তো কোয়ান্টিটেটিভ অ্যাসপেক্ট বলতে এখানে সিস্টেমেটিক রিভিউ হবে, সিস্টেমেটিক রিভিউ হতে পারে বা মেটা অ্যানালিসিস হতে পারে। এটা ভালো আর্টিকেল হবে, তুমি যদি সেখানে কাজ করতে পারো আমার মনে হয় হতে পারে। ঠিক আছে, তো আগামীতে করো।
ঠিক আছে স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
ওকে।
অপলা,
হ্যাঁ বলুন।
very nice article, কিন্তু আমি রিসার্চ পারপাসে একটা পয়েন্ট অ্যাড করতে চাইছি। সরি, আমি একটু রাস্তায় এসেছি বিকজ অফ সাম ফ্যামিলি নিডস। তো এটা যদি সেই সময়কার, আমি যেমন ইন্ডিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভে বেশ কিছু, আমি একবার প্রতীক গুহর একটা লেকচার শুনছিলাম, উনি ইন্ডিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভে বেশ কিছু ফিমেল সায়েন্টিস্টের কথা বলেছিলেন যারা কিন্তু এরকম ডেপ্রাইভ হয়েছিলেন। আমি এক্সাক্ট নামগুলো মনে করতে পারছি না বিকজ it was kind of 4-5 years ago I had the privilege to listen to him. তো ইন্ডিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভে কিন্তু খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং কনসেপ্ট আছে। যেমন আমার এটা খুব মনে পড়ছে যে এজিসি বোসের সাথে একজন ফিমেল সায়েন্টিস্ট ছিলেন, তিনি সেই সময় এটা নেগলেক্টেড হয়েছিলেন বিকজ অফ এরকম কিছু কনটেক্সট ছিল, আই এম নট শিওর অ্যাবাউট ইট। তো সেই যদি পার্সপেক্টিভটা অ্যাড করা যায়, আর এর সাথে এটা রিসার্চ হিসাবে যখনই স্ট্যান্ড করে খুব ভালো জায়গায়, যদি সেই সোশিও ইকোনমিক কন্ডিশন আর সেই অ্যাটিটিউডিনাল ব্যারিয়ার্সটাকে কমপ্লিটলি অ্যাড্রেস করা যায়, তাহলে ওই কনসেপ্টটা কিন্তু খুব সুন্দর দাঁড়িয়ে যাবে।
হ্যাঁ, একজনের উদাহরণ যেমন আমি দিয়েছিলাম, ওই যিনি ওই ডাইনোসরের আবিষ্কারগুলো করেছিলেন, জীবাশ্মের ফসিলের, উনি ওই একদম মানে খুবই মানে ফ্যামিলির অবস্থা খুবই খারাপ ছিল, সেই জায়গা থেকে উনি আর কি উঠেছিলেন আর কি। তো সেটা আমি মেনশন করেছিলাম আর কি।
এটা তো ওনার ইকোনমিক্যাল এবং ওনার সোসাইটাল যে কনসেপ্ট, মানে সেই সময় সোসাইটি, ওটা সোশিওলজিক্যাল যে অ্যাসপেক্টটা আছে, যেখানে ফিমেলদেরকে সেই জায়গাতে দাঁড়ানোর বিষয় হচ্ছে না, ডিসপাইট দেয়ার হ্যাভিং দেয়ার ওন ট্যালেন্টস। সেই সোশিওলজিক্যাল সার্ভেটা যদি করা যায়, সেই সোশিওলজিক্যালি যদি অ্যানালিসিসটা করা যায়, তাহলে কিন্তু খুব বেটার জায়গা হয়। ইন্টারেস্টিং কনসেপ্ট এটা, যা ভাই বলছিলেন, খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং কনসেপ্ট। থ্যাংক ইউ।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
সোশিয়োলজিক্যাল এবং ইকোনমিক্যাল দুটো কন্ডিশনে ইন্ডিয়ান ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু খুব রেলিভেন্ট। এই কারণে যে আমাদের ইন্ডিয়ান গভর্নমেন্ট যে এখন একটা স্লোগান চালাচ্ছে না, বেটি পড়াও বেটি বাঁচাও, এই ধরনের, মানে আমাদের ইন্ডিয়ান কনটেক্সটে যদি এই ধরনের কিছু পাওয়া যায় তাহলে একটা ভালো কিছু হতে পারে, যেমনটা অভিজ্ঞ বললো। ঠিক আছে, এনিওয়ে ইটস আ গুড প্রেজেন্টেশন। তো আর কারো জিজ্ঞাসা আছে না কনক্লুড করে দেবো? কনক্লুড করে দেবো। ওকে, এটা তো যেমনটি বললাম যে এটা খুব ভালো একটা প্রেজেন্টেশন হয়েছে। Your presentation on the Matilda topic, Matilda effect, was incredibly insightful, and no doubt it's impactful. এবং you have done an excellent job that you have been shedding light on the systematic biasness against women scientists, especially foreigners. And they have been often overlooked their contributions, and you have presented so many contributor, means Matilda effect, like কতটা করেছে জানো, 14 না 15 দেখলাম। So especially Thiano, who was a woman mathematician. You have mentioned Sophie Germain, Mary Annings, okay, who has been worked on fossil and paleontologist. She was a paleontologist. And Nettie Stevens, she has discovered sex chromosome. Alice Ball, আরো অনেক এমনি নোয়েদা, আমি নামও প্রোনাউন্স করতে পারছি না, লাইক রোজালিন্ড ফ্র্যাঙ্কলিন, ডরোথি অ্যান্ডারসন, তারপরে ল্যান্ডেবর্গ, এই ধরনের অনেক কিছুই তুমি এখানে মেনশন করেছো। ওকে, তো যে এক্সাম্পলস গুলো তুমি দিয়েছো, এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের সমাজের জন্য একটা আই ওপেনিং এবং একটা থট প্রোভোকিং বলতে পারবো। এবং এই ধরনের প্রেজেন্টেশনের মধ্যে দিয়ে একটা স্ট্রং কানেকশনস আমাদের যারা এখানে জয়েন করেছেন অডিয়েন্স, তাদের সাথে তুমি যোগসূত্র স্থাপন করলে এবং তাদের ভাবিয়ে তুললে যে এই ধরনের বায়াসনেস, ডিসক্রিমিনেশন against women হয়ে থাকে, not only in science but also in socio-economically, religiously এবং even socially। তো এগুলো থেকে বেরোতে হবে, তার জন্য বিভিন্ন প্রোগ্রামস গভর্নমেন্ট করে থাকে। তার মধ্যে তুমি একটা উল্লেখ করেছো এসডিজি, কিভাবে সেটাকে ওভারকাম করা যায়, কিভাবে সেটাকে আরো বেটার ওয়েতে তাদের সাথে থেকে তাদের দক্ষতা অর্জন করতে হয়, তাদের সাপোর্ট করতে হয়, সে সমস্ত কিছু তুমি এই প্রেজেন্টেশনের মধ্যে দিয়ে আলোচনা করেছো। এবং আলোচনা আমার মনে হয় যারা এখানে প্রেজেন্ট রয়েছেন তাদের সকলকেই ভালো লেগেছে, আমার তো খুব ভালো লেগেছে। তো থ্যাংক ইউ Apala for your nice presentations and thought-provoking contributions on the effect of Matilda on science women. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Shreya?
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the entire study circle, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for your unwavering commitment, active participation, and invaluable contribution to our collective learning journey. We acknowledge and appreciate the time, effort, and patience that you shared during our session. Special thanks to Dr. Obik Roy, the convener of the session, and Dr. Atanu Dash, the chairperson of the study circle. I would like to extend a note of gratitude to our president, Dr. Ziaur Rahman sir, whose leadership and guidance have been instrumental in steering our discussion toward meaningful and enlightening direction. I also thank our esteemed speaker, Ms. Apala Chatterjee, for this wonderful and informative presentation on the Matilda effect, invisible woman scientist in science. I'd like to further extend my gratitude to Mr. Abhijit Nashkar and Mr. Shubham Dash for technical assistance. Once again, I want to thank everyone who attended today's study cycle for taking part in this endeavor and welcome you all in advance to attend the next study cycle of Universal Briefing, which will be held on the 1st of March 2025. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shreya, for nicely entering the session. I'd like to mention Shubham in my thanks because promptly he has supported to carry on the session by helping the presentation matters. Thank you, Shubham, and thank you, everybody. We'll be meeting on 1st March. Till then, bye bye. Good night.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night all.